It's the EP podcast. All things Evergreen Park. It's the EP podcast. Evergreen Park.
We're on the northeast corner of 95th and Kedzie at Spoken Vine with Reed and Bridget, who we've met many times on this show before. And about 7 months ago, you opened up Spoken Vine. How has it been so far, Reed?
It's been going great. We've been getting really good response from the neighborhood. We keep getting busier and busier. We've been doing a lot of really fun events that have been getting a lot of new people in here. We're really excited about it.
You got really good food. I know Bridget works on that. That's her main thing. I'm going to talk about that with you here in a moment. But let's talk about the wine first, because you're the guy that's behind the bar. You're serving the wines. You got the reds. You got the whites. You got all these new ones coming in constantly. And I'm sure you had a passion for wine, but you probably have learned more, I would imagine, since being back there. Like, you have to prep yourself to be able to answer questions because people come in and they have questions about the wine. So how much have you learned about wine in the last 7 months?
I feel like I've learned a lot about wine in the last 7 months. It's a lot to take in because you're trying to take on the entire world of wine at one time. Now, I'm not a master sommelier by any means, but I feel like I'm well on my way.
The fact that you know how to say that word already, I can tell you're better at wine than me.
About half the time it comes out. So, but yeah, you just get better and better at it every day, and we plan on doing this for years. So we should be a master one day, but we're always getting better.
So I've sat here a couple of nights already, many nights actually, and watched you work at the bar. I'm a bar guy, you know that.
Yeah.
Like, I come in, like, if I have to sit at a table, all right. But I like to go belly up to the bar. I like to even have my meal at the bar sometimes. I like the camaraderie, the talking to people. I've always loved that kind of thing. So I've listened to you talk wine with people, and people all have a different taste for wine when they come in. Like, I remember I looked at you at one point and I was like, don't give me any Merlot. And you're like, what? I'm like, I hate Merlot. And then you found one that I really liked that was a French one. And you're like, this is different from the California ones. What have you learned about people's taste? Like, are there certain types of wine people like more in this area than others?
So the one thing I've actually learned is I think a lot of people dislike a lot of wine because they've only had a bad version of it. Like when you went to Grandma's house, she had the little bottle of Chianti that was terrible, and you've never tried a Chianti ever since. But by having so many options available and really listening to the styles that people enjoy, sometimes we find that there's more that they will like as long as you're willing to explore it. So that's why we have little pours on everything, so you can try as many as you would like.
And just to give everybody an idea, especially if you're watching the video of this, because there's the audio version on the podcast and then the video will come out if you want to actually see us sitting around. There's a reason why we're sitting in here on your off hour. Because, I think it's pretty clear that we're doing that. You guys are getting ready for another big night here. You're busy. You've got a lot of people that are kind of coming through this place. And, you're hustling in the kitchen, too. I remember when you told me when you were starting this thing, Bridget, that, you were going to be running the kitchen in there. And I thought to myself, I looked around, and I was like, well, I can't handle that many people that I got to cook for. What have you learned in the last 7 months?
I learned that people love carrots, even if they didn't think they love carrots.
What do you have that has carrots that people love?
We have a Burberry spiced carrot dish that's over whipped feta. They're glazed with honey. It's the perfect balance of like sweet, spicy, smoky, tangy. There's candied nuts over top, so like a little bit of crunchiness too. But, people that are willing to try new things. The same thing with the wine. Like, if you're willing to go out and be like, okay, that sounds good. The people next to you are going to be like, did you get the carrots yet?
That's how I ended up with the bacon wrap dates. That was one of them that I got into that. I just asked you when we were setting up. I was like, those are staying on the menu, right? You're like, yep, you love those. The meatballs here are great, but you're finding new things that people like. How do you find what people like, and how do you determine, as a new restaurant, new wine bar, how do you determine what people don't like? Even if it was something you were like, oh, I want this on my menu, and then you're like, they're not responding to this, they're responding to that. Take me through that process. What is that like for you?
Sure. So what I wanted to have was like a kind of a smattering of all different types of things, right? I mean, we're not a steakhouse. We're not an Italian restaurant where it's going to be very classic entrees and you know what you're getting. So, like, I wanted you to be able to come in and everybody at the table be able to get something that they like and maybe, like, you know, pick around from what everybody else ordered. Doing the events that we have every month, the wine tastings, I actually do fresh menu items for those wine tastings to pair with the wines. So, like, past couple months, we do one a month. There's 6 wines, and then I'm pairing 6 new dishes. And it's a small tasting portion of it, but that's where the carrots got launched, right? I needed a vegetarian option. I ran with that. It went over fantastically, so we added them to the menu. We had a couple other things that have just done wonderfully.
So it comes from the wine tastings a lot of ways. You're coming up with something to pair, and then you're getting a response from it, and you're saying, "Oh, this should be on the menu." Normally, how often do those wine tastings take place? How do people come in and do that? Because I know that you can come in any night, and you guys have, you know, 4 different wines you suggest if somebody wants to taste something. People can make their own little sampler thing up. They can sit there and get smaller versions of the wine so they can just kind of take their own journey. But you have special nights. How do people go and try those out?
Right. So every day we do have a flight menu that rotates weekly, and there's probably 4 to 6 different flights on that menu of 4 small tastings each. But once a month, we've been doing our wine tasting night, which is a ticketed event. So we sell 12 seats, and everybody's at the party table. So it's a communal seating event, and it's a presentation, right? You're getting the history of the winery and the grape and a little bit of information about the people who are producing the wine. And then obviously a food pairing with each wine. We put those up for sale on the website. We usually push it out on Instagram and Facebook as well, and through email, to our wine club members and to everybody else that's subscribed to our mailing list.
So you have a wine club too, huh?
You have a wine club.
People jump in the wine club. You know, I've been in other wine clubs, like chains that run wine clubs, and I've never been a fan of them because I feel like I show up and I'm like in a scrum to try to get my samples, and I'm trying, like, what is your wine club? Because I don't imagine yours being as disorganized as some of the bigger names that try to run wine clubs.
Well, fortunately, it's small right now, so it's easier to manage. But yeah, so what we do is right now we have a white club and a red club, so it's either 2 white wine bottles or 2 red wine bottles. And then what we do is we try to pick a theme. So like this month we're in Argentina, so we got everything we did was from Mendoza. And we actually picked everything from one winemaker, the head winemaker for Cantina Zapata. And so you'll have your 2 wines. Then you get a taste of one of the wines every time you come in. Half off on a food item. You get early access to all of our events. And then
the wine club members, when we launch our tasting of the month, they'll get that email first, and for March, half the tickets were gone right when that email went out.
They just come running.
They're like, we know that we get to explore new stuff, because all the stuff that we do for our wine tastings are not on the menu, right? And then things for the wine club are also not on the menu. So those are exclusive to wine club members. We do offer a 2 or a 6 ounce pour to dine in, but you couldn't buy a bottle of that retail. That is only if you're a wine club member.
Wow. Okay. So one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand at home, because I've been in here before, and I can see how the perception could be, it's just wine, right? You have a full menu.
Yeah.
And you can drink things other than wine.
Yep.
You have a selection of craft beers in here. A lot of them are local breweries that you have. You actually even have a non-alcoholic craft beer that's in here. You have all the different options that somebody could possibly want when they come in here, and you've got a wide array of food options. Whether it's you're going to sit down and have a meal, you come in, you get yourself a meal, you person you're with gets a meal, you get one big glass of wine, or you get yourself a beer and you're just having a regular meal, or you may come in here and say, we're going to get appetizers, we're going to get samples, we're going to try different things, but it's really what you make it, right?
Yeah, the way the idea is it can our menu's set up so it can be a lot to a lot of people. So obviously we're predominantly wine, and then we have our local craft beer selection. We started carrying Miller Lite. So if you have your
Look at you.
husband or boyfriend
You're
is
all
not
domestic, huh?
willing to come buy you dinner, we do have the Miller Lite that they need. So
Baby, I ain't going to no fancy bar. I need a Miller Lite.
I'm ready for you.
Okay.
Or
Still like meatballs.
you might have a friend that only drinks Black Cherry White Claw, and they can come too, because we now have the Black Cherry White Claws.
That's amazing that you're doing that, too. You're like, look, we've got all these really cool things, but if you want to drink like you're drinking out of a cooler in somebody's backyard, we have that for you, too.
I mean, everybody should get a chance to experience Smoke and Vine, right? And it'll encourage people to bring their friends who probably would have passed, because if they just think, oh, it's wine, I don't drink wine, they would not think to come here. But knowing that there's other options, and then they can say, well, maybe I will. We've had a lot of people come in and be adamant that they are not wine drinkers and leave saying, wow, I found something, and buying a bottle to take home because they liked the wine that they found so much that they're like, okay, I could do this. Like, I could drink this at home instead of my Miller Lite or Black Cherry White Claw.
That's awesome. And I, the whole concept Spoke and Vine is because you guys are avid bicyclists. Mm-hmm. And so there's some of that added into everything in the place. This is really your first, summer, full like warm season that you're going to have the place. I know originally your envision was that there was, people could bike over and have some wine. So like, is there anything special happening this summer? Anything that you're kind of planning? Are you still ruminating on it?
I think it's closer to ruminations than, actively in the plans. I've got lots of ideas, but everything takes time to execute. So
you have so much going on. You have the wine club. What else do you have coming up that you want me to tell people about?
So Tuesday, April 16th. Tuesday is not usually a day that we're open, but we're having Mario Moro from the Emilio Moro Winery come in and do a special tasting of their wines. So we did this in February as well with 2 winemakers from Tuscany. So another ticketed event, because it's a day that we're closed. So it'll be limited spots to come in and do a special tasting. And then we usually have their wines featured on the menu. Retail purchases available for discount, at a discounted rate. And then I'll do a small menu to supplement that. And then we also did like a small buffet charcuterie spread for everybody.
Awesome. And as you can tell, if you're watching the video, this place is really cool looking. I mean, how do you keep track of all these bottles behind us right now at this bar? I mean, if you take a good look at it, I mean, there's just nothing but bottles and different types of glasses here. Did you go to some training for this? How confusing was it when it started? Are you finally used to the amount of options you have for people?
I've always been used to the amount of options, and you just got to kind of live in it to know it,
It's all been building. We're building,
yeah.
Right? We started with maybe 45 or 50, and now we're up at least 100.
Yeah, and now we're starting to really turn over some of the stuff that seasonally and new releases that are coming out, things that do well, things that don't do well. And that was really one of the big ideas that we had here, was to let our wine menu be fluid so we can try new stuff. So like over the winter, we started doing a lot of stuff from Tuscany. We just kind of had a phase there. We're kind of in Argentina right now,
Okay.
Summertime is coming up, so we'll probably be rolling more into France and rosés, and all of the funness of that happens. So, kind of roll with it.
Awesome. I mean, it should be a fun spring, fun summer here at Spoke and Vine. Do you take reservations, or do you encourage them? What do people do with that?
So you can take reservations. You can make reservations on our website. We have that option. You can also call for reservations. You don't need one. We try not to ever book the whole place. You can just walk in. We're a neighborhood
If you're
place.
a bar person like me, you just walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just thinking like, where do we go? Like, try the new place in town.
Definitely. Try the new place in town. Spoken Vine, northeast corner of 95th and Kedzie. They really have something for everyone. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
It's the EP Podcast. All things Evergreen Park. It's the EP Podcast. Evergreen Park.